go to our all-star legal panel. We have trial attorney Mercedes Colwin, trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris, and former prosecutor Matt Murphy. Great to have all of you here. First of all, I want to get all of your reaction to the fact that his brand new all-star defense attorney seemed to be very surprised and taken aback by these federal charges. In fact, she said, "We're not ready for this. We came to court expecting state charges." Why did that happen?
I'm really confused as to that, because a lot of us talked about the fact that he had gone interstate to commit a crime, and that would trigger federal law. So it's not a surprise, but maybe perhaps things are moving so quickly, Elizabeth, that this is probably what took her by surprise. The speed upon which the federal prosecutors seized the moment and had him appear before Judge Parker this afternoon at SDNY to face those charges.
Yeah, you're right, Mercedes. I think it's not a legal term, but she felt hoodwinked because Alvin Bragg had a huge press conference. There's no mention of federal charges. She's coming here specifically relating to the state level charges, and all of a sudden, it's a whole new world. You're in federal court. So she raised those issues. Number one, likely to start laying the foundation to challenge the federal charges on a double jeopardy legal theory, but also because there's additional discovery obligations if there's a joint investigation between the state and federal government. So that's where this is going.
Yeah, she issued a statement saying the federal government's decision to pile on top of an already overcharged first-degree murder and state terror case is highly unusual and raised serious constitutional and statutory double jeopardy concerns.
This may be the first time I've ever agreed with Alvin Bragg. This was, they initially filed a second-degree murder. This has first-degree murder under the law of New York all over it, because terrorism in New York is defined as any murder committed in an attempt to influence public policy, essentially. And that's clearly, I think, arguably what he was doing with that manifesto. What I think is interesting about the manifesto is he said these parasites, plural. And I'd be very curious when they get into his electronic data if there's any other people on this list that he wanted to go kill.
It is interesting you bring up this manifesto that he wrote. It's a handwritten notebook. It's addressed to the feds, which clearly he knows he's planning on being caught, and he writes this to the feds. He writes, "The details are finally coming together. I'm glad I've procrastinated because it allowed me to learn more about Company A," that name is redacted. "The target is insurance, but it checks every box." This was in August. And then in October, he writes, "The investor conference is a true windfall. The message becomes self-evidence to whack the CEO at an investor conference." I mean, no mystery there, Matt.
No mystery there, and that will feed right into the prosecution's argument that this is, in fact, New York terrorism by definition, because he's attempting to influence policy. One of the things that I think is worth discussion here, though, are all the people that crawled out of the woodwork kind of cheering him on. And
we're going to get to that in a second.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. But very quickly, Mercedes, who gets precedence? The feds?
Well, that's really interesting. You can see the feds taking precedent because they have a much quicker discovery schedule, but there's going to be coordination. To your point, Misty, there will be coordination between the state and the federal prosecutors to do the discovery jointly. So there will be some sort of agreement. Well, and frankly, in those circumstances, it will be likely that Alvin Bragg defers to the federal prosecution to go forward.
And the federal case has death penalty possibility attached to it.
Yes, it is death penalty eligible. So that murder charge.
We don't know if they're going to ask for it.
We don't know because it's ultimately up to the Attorney General. So think about what that means at this particular point in time. We're talking about a change in the Department of Justice on January 20th. So it ultimately would be the Attorney General's decision. And there's an internal process. They review everything, prepare a recommendation, and then ultimately it lies in the hands of the Attorney General themselves.
All right. Matt, you brought up the huge groundswell of support for him. I was shocked at the amount of commentary I saw on social media as he was appearing in court this afternoon on how he looked, on his appearance. At Newsweek magazine, of all places, wrote this: "Mangione, 26, got a haircut Wednesday at the barber shop inside the prison in Pennsylvania." And then the reporter calls the prison. When asked if Mangione also got his eyebrows waxed, the prison staff replied, "Waxing is not available at our prison barber shop. They may have used clippers."
Right.
This is extraordinary that not only online are people cheering this guy on, but reputable news organizations are writing about whether or not he got his eyebrows waxed and what a great haircut he has.
As if it's a joke. You know, and this is one of those things, we just saw this on Menendez. You know, look, it's like cute people or attractive people get this kind of wacky fringe that that thinks this is kind of funny, and they weigh in. And this is kind of two groups. There's the people that think he's cute, and then there's the people that are aligned politically with this anti-corporate CEO, anti-healthcare thing. And to those people, you know, there's a family here. And I dealt with that for 17 years.
Yep.
My esteemed panelists have dealt with the same thing. He's got two little girls, or two kids, that are suffering greatly, two boys that are suffering greatly right now. And anybody who says violence is wrong, but, or I don't condone murder, but, anything after the but, they are condoning murder.
Okay, watch this, because we've been, you know, covering this for some time. Last night, Chris Cuomo interviewed a young woman who's helped raise more than $150,000 for Luigi Mangione. I want to have you react to what she says. Take a look.
Trying to figure out how to use this moment of of popular excitement that has been touched off by, yes, a violent act that I would not advocate for as a tactic if it were up to me, but it happened.
A moment of popular excitement touched off by this murder.
It's crazy.
It's shocking. And you know what? When we saw today, when that helicopter landed on Wall Street and the entourage surrounding Mangione with the mayor, a spectacle. And I think it's because of this reaction. It's trying to have a deterrent effect. You know, the federal government doesn't usually do the perp walk. That's very different. And usually it's somebody is transferred and it's very secretive. In this case, Eric Adams standing right front and center. It's obvious to draw attention.
What is the mayor of New York City doing there?
You know, he's there because he wants to say it. He said so much. He said, this is not the type of thing we're going to tolerate in New York, and there is going to be a deterrent effect for copycats or anybody who shares the opinions of these individuals who are making Mangione a hero.
But go ahead.
No, look at the type of notoriety. So you know there's someone out there saying, wow, look at all the attention this man's getting. So if they're a little unhinged and want this type of attention, why not do something as outrageous and crazy and violent like he's being accused of doing?
And this is at a time when we have this poll from Emerson, a poll that showed voters 18 to 29 said Luigi Mangione's murder, alleged murder, was, quote, accepable.
It's shocking.
Unbelievable.
It's absolutely unbelievable.
What does that say about the mood of this country right now? I don't even know how to ask this question.
I think it's a product of social media. It's like drivers in LA, where I'm from, where you're anonymous in your car. Anybody can say ridiculous things online. I think if they actually wound up in that jury room or going through deliberations, that's a different story.
We're looking at the photos of Brian Thompson's dead body, maybe? I'm not really it's really amazing.
Part of this is that
and as Chris pointed out last night, she's not raising money for victims of health insurance who've had their claims denied. She's raising money for a guy accused of murder.
Of a brutal, cold-blooded murder. And I'll tell you, this is one of those things that if the general public could see the brutality of what was edited off that tape, to see what a human being looks like when they're actually shot with a bullet like this, or the autopsy photos, the mood would change rapidly, because it is the ugliest thing a human being can do. There's multi-generational trauma that goes into this. Like, it is absolutely horrific, and the people that are laughing at it, they should all consider the person they love most, and imagine that person getting murdered because they have a job where somebody thinks that it's acceptable.
All right, we now know that he's hired this brand new, we heard in the intro a soundbite from his lawyer in Pennsylvania. I'm betting that'll probably be the last time we hear from that particular lawyer.
Good call.
Forever, because he's got a brand new lawyer, an expensive lawyer here in New York City. Do we have any idea who's paying for that?
Well, his parents are very wealthy. And if I had to make a prediction, I've been in these tug-of-wars with the feds over murder cases before. The state of New York filed it first. And I think that they're going to wind up keeping this. My guess is this is going to be a New York trial.
Oh, you think the state will go first? You thought the feds would take precedent.
Well, they certainly want it. But my bet here with Eric Adams and all the rest, there's a lot of political will to do this in New York. And they filed first. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's going to go down here, and then we'll see what the feds do when it's all done.
What do we know about this new lawyer representing Mangione?
She has a tremendous following. I mean, she's an excellent lawyer. She worked with Alvin Bragg. She was one of the department heads.
She's never prosecuted or defended a murder case.
No, but she's brilliant at what she does. So presumably, she's already raising some of the procedural defects that there may exist between the fact that these are the two companion cases filed at the same time. So she's already looking towards trying to defeat one of them procedurally. Whether she's successful or not, we'll have to see. She is very high-powered and very expensive. So, and we know that her husband also represents Sean Diddy Combs, which is interesting. So
By the way, Sean Diddy Combs and Luigi Mangione are both in the same jail tonight.
Yes, that's true. How ironic.
How ironic. Represented by the same lawyers, I guess, at least one of the lawyers.
Sure.
Okay, so next he appears in court in January. We do know that at one point people were talking about a possibility of an insanity defense. There was a comment that his mother apparently made to San Francisco police, or New York police, when they were, asking about whether or not this picture could be him. Could this, back before he was caught in Pennsylvania? And she said, "I don't know, but it sounds like something he would do." It sounds like, based on the fact that he completely vanished and went off the grid for the past 6 months, like somebody who's clearly unraveling. Yep. But it's difficult. It's difficult to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. You have to prove you don't know right from wrong.
Yeah, you don't know right from wrong.
Carefully covered up his tracks.
And that's where it's going to be an issue. Not only all of the planning and preparation. In New York, you have to say you don't know right from wrong. You don't know the nature and consequences of your actions. This is certainly somebody who did. And that is reflected in the planning document. And that's also reflected in the leaving of New York, right? So an insanity defense is going to be very difficult. The other option would be extreme emotional disturbance. It's not an affirmative defense, but it can downgrade a charge. Are those going to be raised? I think the prospect of the "it wasn't me" defense is just impossible at this point. So there has to be something relating to actually getting the intent level. And I think you're likely to see something in that vein.
You've prosecuted so many murders. Is this an open and shut case for prosecutors?
Well, they're going to have to, all of that I think is going to play in on his specific intent regarding the public policy thing. So where that's going to come in, there's a huge difference, as Misty just said, between mental illness and legal insanity. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see the way this plays out. The lawyer involved is excellent, and I think that they'll navigate that pretty well. But look, this is a very, very strong case.
Yeah. But what about jury nullification? We haven't talked this groundswell of support. There might be jurors out there who say, "I don't care what the judge has said. I don't care what the law is. I feel that he was right in doing what he did." And that could happen.
Yeah. Jury nullification, a big possibility. All right, Misty Marris, Mercedes Colwin, Matt Murphy, thank you all so much.